Hey guys, how's it going? I'm back here with another video, and today I have a different kind of video. What happens is that in about a week I will be starting out a new job, and I need to learn a new programming language for the job. It isn't required that I know this prior to starting the job. However, it would definitely help me out if I have practice with it. So I want to learn Go, which is the language that I need to use in the next 48 hours. So obviously I'm not that used to making videos like this. This is kind of going to be kind of like a vlog. I'm used to tutorials. However, I'll try my best to go over all the small little things that I'm trying to learn. So I have experience with different programming languages before, as you guys have seen in my previous videos, but I never actually worked with Go. I feel like it won't be that hard. However, it's not because I know a lot of things or anything like that. It's just because when you learn a programming language and you already are used to different programming languages, then it becomes a lot easier to learn a new one. Someone who has never coded before will probably have a hard time learning Go because it is their first programming language. But someone who has experience with programming will definitely have a much easier time while trying to learn a new language. So one thing that I want to let everyone know is that this job will be a full stack role. So I'll be using Go to create the API, to work with APIs, and that's something that I want to learn. I don't want to just get stuck in learning the syntax, learning how to use the language, but I also want to find real-world applications where I can use Go as a language to create something, such as an API. I have no idea how to use Go for APIs, so that's something I'll have to research, and I have about 48 hours to do so. So now it's time. Let's get into the video. Okay, so to start out, I knew that this video existed. It's a video by Jake Wright, a guy that has an awesome YouTube channel. I'm subscribed to him. He has some awesome videos on embedded programming, if you guys are interested in that, and also like, I don't know, home automation, that kind of stuff. But he's also really good with Go. So I knew this video existed. It has 600,000 views. And I'm going to try to use this to learn kind of like the basic syntax of the language before I actually start diving deep into harder stuff. Oh, and by the way, I actually already installed everything, so I already have Go running in my computer. I actually had to do that because apparently installing Go is a very weird process, and I had some bugs while doing so. However, right now I think everything is running. Actually, just to test it out, yesterday I ran Hello World and it worked out, so that's amazing. However, right now I just have a main.go file which I can run very easily by running the command something like go run and then the name of the file. Haven't tried out everything. I'll start understanding how everything works. However, let me continue watching the video and I'll be back in a second. Okay, so I've actually been understanding quite a bit. It's kind of odd compared to what I'm used to. Some main changes I've seen is the way you import files or packages is kind of weird. You just write an import, then you open and close parentheses, and you just put the name of the packages, which is kind of weird, but actually it's fine. Then I created a function which, again, the syntax for function is func, which I hadn't seen before, which is weird because usually languages reuse their syntax. So seeing a language like Go, which has a semi-simple syntax, but at the same time is really fast, as fast as languages like C or whatever, it's quite cool. So I'm just trying to digest all this different syntax that this language has compared to something like JavaScript, and I'm actually starting to get it. You can see to declare a variable, there's two ways of doing it. You can declare one by saying something like var, the name of the variable, and then the type, so you can actually use the type, and then it will just declare the variable like this. But if you don't want to declare the type, Go also is able to infer the type, similar to how you do it in JavaScript or in Python. You can just write the name of the variable, then you use this kind of weird syntax over here and set it equal to whatever value you want, and it will infer. For example, if this is a string, it knows it's a string, right? Because there's quotation marks around it. But this is kind of the idea. And also there's this package called fmt, which for now, I guess it's just used for printing stuff on the console. I can run this and we'll print this. And also, importantly, I learned how to work with if statements. One thing that is interesting is we don't put parentheses for the if statements. And that's weird because we do put parentheses for the function, which I guess it makes sense, but I don't know. I just find it weird that we're not using parentheses. It's similar to Python, and yeah, that's kind of what I've learned so far. Okay, so I'm back here, and I actually learned a lot of things, especially on how to work with arrays, because it is very different. As you can see right here, we created an array, and arrays usually are of fixed length, so it's similar to something like in Java, where you need to set the length of the array, and it will not open more space in the memory to if you want to add new values. However, if you want to create an array that is dynamic, I'm not sure about this, but I think it's called a slice in Go. It's just a data structure which allows you to add and append new values to it, modify its length, and it creates space in memory so that you can do that. So to do that, I just created this very cool array here called languages. I just set it equal. It's an array of strings, so I just created a few languages over here. And also, one thing that I noticed is when you declare stuff here, you need to use curly braces, even for arrays, which is kind of weird. And also, if you're going to append stuff, it's not like in JavaScript where you just say, I don't know, languages.append or languages.push, right? To add something to the end. To actually add stuff to an array, you need to use this built-in function called append, and you put the array over here, and you also set the array equal to this. So you set the array equal to append, which I guess it's a copy of the original array plus the new value. I'm not that sure about anything that I'm doing. I'm just starting it out, so I might say some stuff that are wrong. If you want, correct me please, because I'm still learning, and it would definitely help me out if you guys are already familiar with Go and you want to give me some tips. Then I did the obvious, for one of the first steps that you do with every language. I learned how to loop through stuff, and apparently there is no such thing as a while loop in Go, which I found really weird. Not that they are so useful, they're actually quite useless. It depends on what you're doing. They're useful for like game development, they're useful for some kind of algorithms, but a for loop is mainly used in many different languages, and just to create a for loop, it's very similar. You just say for I equal to 0, so you create a variable called I, set it equal to 0, and then navigate it towards some sort of value. Over here, I'm iterating through the length of the array, and I'm just printing out the values. So if I do something like this, you'll see that we printed out a lot of stuff. We printed out first the initial array that I created of just numbers. Then we printed out the slice that I created with the new value that I appended at the end, and you guys can see it worked. And then we looped through this array, and we just printed out each value. So it's working perfectly. I also saw that there's a different kind of for loop, which I'm going to try here so you guys can see. It's similar to something we have in Python, which basically we can say key, then value, and then set this equal to range of some sort of, I don't know, some sort of array. So I'll loop through the languages array. I don't know if this is gonna work, but basically what we do is we can print out each value or in each index. So this is a different way of writing this for loop. We now have access to each value of the array and also each index of the array. So I can just print out something like key and value, and then it will print out every element in the array with its index and its value. Let's see if this works. Yeah, it works. So 0 Python, 1 Go, 2 JavaScript, 3 Java, and it works perfectly. So I'm actually really excited. I'm starting to like the language, but this happens quite often when you start learning a new language. I will definitely get very annoyed at Go as we get into more complicated stuff. Okay guys, so I've been watching this video and it's actually very helpful. I actually finished the video, but there was one specific thing that I really enjoyed, which was learning about dealing with errors and creating a very specific function called square root. So I completely copied this code from Jake's video. However, I really found it very helpful. What it does is basically you can create a function called square root, and it takes in a number, so an argument. I called it number, and you need to give it its type, right? So since when you do a square root, usually you get decimals. The type for this in Go is float 64, and there's also float 32 if you want to, but we're gonna be using 64 bits. And then you gotta put the return type. And interestingly enough, you can actually return multiple things in Go. So for example, if you're doing a function which square roots something, it is bound to have some errors because you can't square root a negative number, right? That kind of makes sense. So what happens is we added this type which comes from a different library in Go called the errors library, and we can now return an error if we want to. And this is exactly what we did, because over here we're just checking if number is less than 0, then it would be an imaginary number, so the square root of a negative number is imaginary. So I just returned first of all a float, which in this case it's 0, but it doesn't really matter, and the actual error, which I grabbed from this errors package that I imported over here. And I just created a new error message which says this is an imaginary number, and if this doesn't happen, just return the actual square root of it. So it's kind of redundant that I created this function, because there is a package called math which allows you to use the square root function. So right here I'm just returning the square root value, and at the end I also need to return an error. So in this case I can just return nil, which is kind of like the equivalent of null in JavaScript. So over here we just called in our main function, we just said that we want to print whatever is the result of this function. So we said that we want to square root 25, and if we run this, it should return to 5, which is the square root of 25, and nil for the errors. But if we gave this a negative number like negative 25, it should return the error. Actually, oh wait, I actually haven't tested this. Let's see. Yeah, return 0, and then the error message which says this is an imaginary number. So I kind of feel like I have a good base. I feel like I understand a little bit of the basic syntax. Obviously I'm not good enough. Maybe tomorrow I'll haven't even forgotten most of it, but I also learned how to work with maps. I forgot to show you guys this, but in the video he taught us how to work with maps, how to add stuff, how to create a hash map. It's actually really interesting. However, what I'm feeling is I'll be doing some LeetCode questions right now, or maybe in a bit, because I also want to take a break. But the reason why I do LeetCode questions is because it really helps you understand the fundamentals. So I have done a lot of LeetCode questions while practicing for interviews, but I used Python in that case. So if I just redo those questions, which I already know how to do, but try to convert the logic into Go, it will definitely help me out, because I will understand all the very simple and like small different details of the language, which I would normally not know without having years of experience. So that's a method which I learned online. I don't remember where, but it's a good way when you're trying to learn a new language and you've already have experience with programming before. Just do LeetCode questions. So that's the basic plan. I'll be back when I've done a couple LeetCode questions, or when I'm ready to start again. So yeah, see you guys in a bit. Okay, so it's actually the next day, and I did some problems with LeetCode yesterday. However, I don't know, I just didn't have the energy to continue coding, so I decided to wait a bit, and today I'm actually going to be doing a lot more LeetCode questions, and I actually just finished one and I wanted to show you guys. So this question is called remove outermost parentheses. It's an easy question. I've done it before. I don't know, I like this question when I was studying. I don't know, it makes sense to me, and I decided to transform the logic that I wrote in Python to make it so that it would work in Golang. And this is why I think it is important to do LeetCode questions, because for example, one thing that I never learned outside of, like, if I hadn't done this question, is that when you work with characters in Go, so when you like loop through a string, each character, it's actually called a rune, which from my understanding, which I'm not, like, I don't know if I'm completely right on that, so if I get something wrong, please let me know. A rune is just a literal that expresses values from the ASCII table. So like any character, any like the delete, space, whatever, like just characters, and in that case it includes characters from a string. So technically here, for this question, I'm not going to explain the algorithm, but I had to convert each character into a string, so that I had to compare each character to a string, because it was giving me some type errors. So this was something that I couldn't understand if I hadn't tried this problem out, and I actually really like it. So I'm probably going to I will continue working with a few more problems, and then I want to transition into trying to build an API in Go. I'm not sure how that's going to work out, but I see you guys in a bit. Okay guys, so I think I made a lot of progress. It's actually been a while since I last recorded the the last part of the video. But basically, I've been working hard on trying to get how to create a REST API with Go, and I know it's a very advanced thing, especially when you're just beginning. I just started learning the syntax for Go like yesterday, but the thing is, I think that when you're used to learning different languages and you're already used to a structure of a REST API, then it's much easier. So in this case, I'm kind of making connections between what I know from other languages to what I'm learning from Go, and I think this helps a lot. But the thing is, I spent like 1 or 2 hours actually just trying to set up my Go environment, and yeah, that was kind of a struggle. It's a struggle that most people have to go through whenever they're learning a new language or a new technology, and I guess it helps in the long run. I created my first REST API and it's working perfectly, and I want to show you guys. Here we have my REST API, my code. I know it's beautiful. I don't even know how to structure a Go project. I'm just going with it. But basically, we have here our main.go file, and I just imported some packages that are going to be useful for our project. This package over here was the one that caused me so much problem. I had to fix a lot of stuff, but now it's working perfectly. And what I did is basically I created a simple API which doesn't have a database, but I used Go to create a type called user, which contains a username, a password, and a birth date. And I basically just have inside of my memory like an array of users, which I'm just adding and deleting and like reading whatever I want to do. I'm not using a database, I'm just using this array. But it helps me to learn in the beginning, especially because setting up some database is complicated, especially in a new language, so I didn't want to deal with that right now. So what I'm doing is from what I understand, I just came here at the bottom and there's the main function, right? This is the entry point of our application, and I created down here an array, which is kind of like the base data, the first set of data that we have. We can add to this, we can delete from this, we can do whatever we want to this data, but this is kind of like the starting point. It's just an array of users that I created. And then I call this function called handle requests, and the handle requests function is really important. It basically creates different routes in your application. It sets up your application to accept routes. And then I just set up 2 routes, a GET request for /users and a POST request for /users. And both of these requests, whenever you call them, it accesses a function that you pass over here. So I created both the GET_users function and the create_users function. And down here at the bottom, this is kind of like where you listen to your server. So if you're used to like NodeJS and Express or something like that, this is kind of like the app.listen part of your application. It's where you're just telling your server to listen to some port, and it works perfectly. I now can reach the port 3001. And now over here you can see that I have 2 routes. I have the get users and the create users. The get users is pretty simple. This over here, each request takes in 2 arguments, similar to most other languages. One is for the response and one is for the request. I guess this R over here is for the request and the W is for the response. And then what I do with this is basically I use the JSON package that I imported to parse my JSON and just return like my list of users as the response for the request. And this works perfectly. If I come to Insomnia and I run a GET request to this endpoint over here, it doesn't work because I didn't run my project. Let me just run it. You'll see that it should actually return, yeah, it returns back a list of all the users. So this is kind of the idea of a GET request. But then we have a POST request, which is our create users function. And it's a bit more complicated. First, I had to set headers to say that I'm accepting JSON. Then I had to create a new empty user, which is going to be the variable for the new user we're adding to our data. Then I had to do this, which is basically I parsed the data that I'm sending through the body, and then I'm just setting it equal to the new user variable that I created over here. And by the way, if I get any of this wrong, just let me know, because I'm not experienced with this at all. This language is a lot different from other backend languages that have worked before. So I definitely, if you know anything, if you know more than I do, which I guess a lot of you guys will probably know, just let me know in the comments, because I want to learn this language and I want to get better at it. Then we have users, which we basically just set the array of users to a new version of it with the new user appended to the end. So we're just adding the new user to the users list, and at the end we just return back as JSON the new user so we can have a visual confirmation of it. So let's run this post request here in Insomnia. I created a fake user over here called Jessica, and when I run this, the request runs perfectly. And then if I go to the get request, you can see Jessica isn't here, but if I run again, now Jessica is here because we added her to our data. So this is kind of the idea. I think this is enough because it's only been 2 days, you know. You can't force yourself to learn a language. I know the point of this video was to try to learn as much as I can in 2 days, but my point with that is just that I wanted to show you guys basically the thought process and the steps I take whenever I want to learn a new language or a new technology, and I guess this is a good representation of it. I usually just go through documentation in the beginning, watch a quick YouTube video, something like learn this language in 10 minutes, so, like this kind of videos, you know. Then I get a good idea of the syntax. Then I try to go through some LeetCode problems because that's definitely going to help. That's going to make me understand the language more logically. And then I try to build some sort of real-world application. And I guess building this very, very simple API is good enough because at least I have an idea, and at least for the job that I'm gonna be working, I'll have some time to actually understand, actually get used to the code, because that's what matters, right? So that's basically it. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like down below and comment what you want to see next. Subscribe because I'm posting 3 times a week, and I would massively appreciate. We just hit 10K, and I can't even understand how that happened. I'm so grateful that it happened, and yeah, I just wanted to thank you guys. And by the way, let me know if you like this style of video. I don't appear too much in my videos because I don't have a good camera. I'm just borrowing a camera right now, and it's a phone, and the setup is horrible. I wanted to show you guys the setup, but it's just a book and my phone is on top of it. But just let me know if you want to see more videos where I appear in the video, or if you guys want to see this kind of like vlog style. I usually do more tutorials, and I want to continue doing more tutorials, but it's cool to like sometimes here and there just throw some videos that is a bit different, right? So that's the idea. Really hope you guys enjoyed it, and I see you guys next time.